very important hearing. We've had a couple hearings on this issue, and we should be focusing on this issue because this is what a lot of our constituents care about. I have a lot of seniors in my district and large veterans population, and lowering prescription drug prices is an utmost priority for me. To that end, I want to ask a question of Dr. Holtz-Eakin. To that end, the bill that I recently introduced, as Madam Chair alluded to with Congressman Cunningham, the Creating Lower Cost Alternatives for Your Prescription Drugs, or CLAY, the CLAY Act, is a great first step, in my opinion, modernizing Part D to lower prescription drug costs. However, it's a first step, and I believe that modern Part D has been an outstanding program, one of the greatest programs we've had, and it's been below budget, like 40% below budget, and it's helped out our seniors. But we must upgrade it and modernize it. I understand that the AAF has a comprehensive proposal for modernizing Part D. Would you please share your input with the committee, Doctor, please?
Well, certainly we'd be happy to provide a copy of the paper that Tara O'Neill Hayes wrote, who's here with me today. It's similar in spirit to what Dr. Miller discussed in his remarks, which is what we see in Part D is the most rapidly growing government cost, taxpayer cost, is in the reinsurance area. So it's above the catastrophic maximum. And so the proposal in the essence says, why don't we have the prescription drug plans and the pharmaceutical industry be responsible for their share of the costs above that catastrophic maximum so that the incentives to have high-priced drugs are diminished? Why don't we fully protect taxpayers against their out-of-pocket by having a catastrophic maximum where they don't owe any more past that? And then have a sort of typical 80-20 split for the remainder of the drugs so that, you know, PDPs have a real strong incentive to get PBMs to negotiate on their behalf for the remainder of the drugs, where typically they're not sole source, there is more competition, and the possibility of vigorous competitions is much more likely. So it is a good program. It's not broken. It's been very successful, but we can sharpen the basic negotiating incentives that were built in the program, make it better going forward.
Very good. Again, Doctor, Congress developed incentives to encourage development of rare disease therapies, and I work on that issue, where innovation was previously almost non-existent. How might the SPIKE Act in its current form have an outsized impact on future innovation for rare disease drug development, and how can we best address this concern?
Well, I guess I would say a couple things. You know I have my reservations about the SPIKE Act. I mentioned them in my written testimony and in my opening remarks. There's nothing about it, I think, that guarantees lower drug prices. It is most likely to impact those startups specializing in those kinds of drugs and where launch prices are typically going to be very high, and so you'll be above this arbitrary threshold with a very high-value drug, and I worry about diminishing those incentives. Having said that, I just want to echo something Dr. Miller said, which is I don't think transparency in the end is going to deal with the places where we have high drug costs in the United States, and the things under consideration today have merit, but they're not ultimately the solution. It's fundamental reforms of the type you talked about in Part D. I think those are important. In Part B, where there's no particular reason to give 6% of the ASP to delivery of a drug, that's uncorrelated with the cost of actually treating a patient, so reimburse for that instead. Those are the reforms that I think will be more effective than just transparency.
Thank you. One other question. Often when discussing high drug prices, we tend to focus on what is wrong without mentioning what is going right to ensure we achieve the desired result in a way that does not undermine the progress that has already been made or produce other negative unintended consequences. Can you share with us what is currently working and how we might double down on these efforts?
As I'm noted at the outset, there is a trade-off between financial incentives like prices and innovation. We are literally in an era with unprecedented innovation and the capacity to treat illnesses that were not previously deemed to be treatable And all of that is evidence of the power of that incentive. And I think it's important to hold on to that. I also think it's very important to think price for who. That's come up several times. And keep focusing on the fact that in some cases, so for example, with the rebate rule, if in fact list prices don't go down, then there's a chance that premiums will go up for everybody, but the people who are going to be protected are those who have the biggest drug costs and the most severe conditions. That's exactly what an insurance program should do. And so let's keep track of whose price is being affected as much as prices in general.
All right, thank you very much. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Gentleman yields back. I now would like to recognize the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welch.
Thank
5
you.
minutes.
Just starting to acknowledge something that Mr. Holtz, or Dr. Holtz-Eakin said, we have made a lot of progress in pharma. Unfortunately,